Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama,
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama,
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama,
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama,
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Ram Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Rama Hare Hare
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama,
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Rama Hare Hare
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama,
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Hare
Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama,
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Hare
Krishna, Krishna
Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama,
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, everyone, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Gaur Premanandi, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chaksurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha. Sri Chaitanya Manobhistam Tapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Tadati Sapadantikam Vansha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Bhayevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah. Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasade Gaur Bhaktavrinda. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Right. So I don't really have a plan for what I'm going to speak on. I thought even leaving it open to questions, but then I saw Gail walk in. so we'll change that plan. But I had a general idea that just review the main points of the different classes I'm teaching. But something about questions. Questions is really dialectic. If we look at all the different books that we have, they're dialectic. Means there's questions and answers. And that became very apparent why to me when we really first began studying the sacred text seriously. There was, you can't imagine, there was no education in ISKCON. Now we have all these Bhakti Shastris and so many classes, and there was none of that. It was started in Vrindavan, when I was in Vrindavan, a nice devotee named Burijan Prabhu. And at that time, everybody in the Hare Krishna movement was in the temples. There was no congregation. None. They weren't focused. I think what Prabhupada thought was something like this: I have 10 years and I want to take over the world. Like a revolution, like in Cuba. They went up to the, it was that kind of mood. So it wasn't. And then, obviously, it's described when there's a very powerful person and then he leaves, his glory is that there's chaos. If you know sports, sometimes there's a great player. And when I grew up a little bit, maybe Michael Jordan, basketball or something. And then when he leaves, they have so many championships and then they don't. That's the person's glory. So when Prabhupada left, if there wasn't chaos, it wouldn't be Prabhupada's glory. And then another problem is, has anybody ever heard of the book Lord of the Flies? Yeah. Lord of the Flies is about these young kids that get stranded on a desert island. And then someone has to be in charge, but they're young kids. And, and there's different psychologies, and then one person's in charge, and the book is Lord of the Flies, because what does that mean? It's like people are not qualified and someone's in charge. Doesn't mean you have someone in charge qualified. So when Prabhupada left, how old were the people? Well, they were, I remember there was one article in the BTG that Satsvarup Maharaj was 40 years old. I said, oh my God, how 40 years old? How can someone be 40 years? I was looking like, we have such old men in our society. 40 years old. Yesterday, I went to Satsvarup Maharaj's function. Sri Rupa was there, 2 other people. He's 85 years old. So when Prabhupada left, no one was. I was probably the average age. I was 27. I remember at the age of like 29, I was put in the head of a school in India, and they put my they put my sign above my office, right? And you know what the Hindi for principal is? Pradhan Acharya. Not just Acharya. Pradhan means the chief. My sign said the chief Acharya. So Prabhupada, and then what Prabhupada did is he had to spread Krishna consciousness really quickly. Why doesn't everybody just move up just a little bit? That way when people come in the back, just a little bit. Okay, that's good. And then Prabhupada had to so he had to have a social organization, because Prabhupada knows, and this is the thing, that things work efficiently when there's authority. You want to have an organization not work efficiently, then do it by committee. Then do it by committee. Right? You have authority. You make decisions. That's how things get function. So Prabhupada had to make a social organization. He needed preaching leaders. So he made sannyasis, young people. I remember there were 2 sannyasis, and he made, I think they were 21 and 22 years old. And they thought, okay, now we're sannyas, and we have to conquer all the philosophies. Because it says, when you sit on the seat, right? It says in the Bhagavatam, when you sit on the seat, you have, John Stuart Mill said, one who knows only his own side of the argument knows little of it of all. The problem in the modern age, if you don't know the other side, you don't know your own. So it's expected, you have to know, to establish your own doctrines, or even to maintain faith in your own thing, you have to know. So he made 2 sannyasis. And then one was French-Canadian. So he had a little bit French-Canadian accent. And they went down to South India to conquer all the other philosophies. So they went to the Pejava Swami. In the Madhva line, probably you're more connected here with the Ramanuja line. But the Madhva line, they have 8 sannyasis only. And when they die, they have a junior sannyasi. Junior sannyasi means, let's say there's a senior and a junior. When the senior passes away, then the junior becomes the next sannyasi. Then how do they find the junior sannyasi? They go to a village of like pure Brahmins. They go to this village of pure Brahmins and they do astrological charts, right? And then they find someone 13 or 14 years old. When you get the religious staff, I have a danda some places called a danda, it's your height. So they have these small dandas because they get it when they're like 12 or 13 years old. But no one fell away in like 500 years. The biggest crisis of their sannyasis was one sannyasi crossed the ocean. They're not allowed to cross the ocean because in those across the ocean from India, there wasn't any culture. It's contaminated. And he went to America and he had a picture with George and Laura Bush and the Madhva. When he came back, they wouldn't let him worship the deity. This is true. And there was 8 of them, and the most famous was Dhanurdhara Swami. Their system is they will only bathe in a holy river. They'll only eat. They're really into like the purity of their consciousness. So when he came to Mayapur from Prabhupada's 500th centennial, he only bathes in the river. It was the middle of the winter. So they went and they met him, and immediately they challenged him. And I remember one of them had a broken nose like this. The other was French Canadian. He said, "What is the 3 aspects of the absolute truth?" A simple point, right? They challenged him. He was laughing. Young men. And then so many of them couldn't follow their vows. How do you do this? You take vows of celibacy at that age. Even Lord Chaitanya, right? Even Lord Chaitanya, he took sannyas when he was 24. And when he took sannyas when he was 24, he apologized to his mother. He said, "Mommy, I was crazy. What am I doing?" So then, naturally, they couldn't maintain this celibacy and everything. And then Prabhupada said, my godbrothers criticized me. Why I gave so, but one thing they were right. Why I gave young men sannyas. And then Prabhupada quoted a Bengali saying, when there's no trees in the forest, the poplar tree, the castor oil tree looks big. Castor oil tree only gets this big. Now, there's no in the forest. The castor oil tree looks big. So anyway, I don't know how I got there, but I started off that I didn't have anything planned, and then I started talking about that, and I wanted something about why all the books are in dialectic, why there's always discussion in dialectic. And the reason there's always discussion in dialectic is because to speak the truth doesn't mean the truth is understood. A person has to have a frame of reference. Now I know where I'm going. I don't know what that was, the other thing was, but has to have a frame of reference to understand that. Okay, now I understand. I remember. So there was no education in ISKCON. There was no congregation. There was no education. Everybody was in the temples. We're taking over the world in 12 years. Where someone said, we may have been crazy, but we were fired up. It was like an energy like that. So, and then at a particular time, now I'm getting my frame of reference. after Prabhupada, who was going to take over? He only had men that would 27, 28 were only devotees for like 7 or 8 years. It wasn't educated. And then they had to take this post up. And, there was chaos. And I remember a thing when some of them couldn't maintain their vows and they had disciples, and all of a sudden people were free. And they didn't know where we take shelter, so they all started coming to Vrindavan. And that's when Burijan Prabhu said, he's very revolutionary, he said, we need to have education. And we started the first Vrindavan Institute for Higher Education. We started it there. Now, Sri Rupa and Jai Subhadra, they're disciples of Tamal Krishna Maharaj. So I have to tell them one Tamal Krishna Maharaj story. So he was one of the first teachers, right? So he had the class, and he was giving the class, and he gave a test, and I don't know, it was like an hour. He gave like 500 questions. I don't know, something. So the students were like working, and they were like this. And he was walking outside. He said, when I was in school, I didn't like it, but like a teacher, I like. So they were writing different questions like this feverishly. And anyone that would come in late, you're late, you're losing points. So we started this Vrindavan Institute for Higher Education to educate people. And at that time, we all started to study. So I started although I was one of the first teachers, I was also studying, and they had this in-depth study of Bhagavad Gita, which everyone has now. Bhakti Shastri, and study it systematically. There was nothing like that. There was morning class and there was evening class. And people weren't that learned because they just came to the Hare Krishna movement. But there was something about their dedication and surrender you have to respect. Even my disciple Raghunath, he's a very big preacher now, but he always says, those Prabhupada disciples, the way they gave their life. They may not have been learned, but the way that's something real special. But this education is also so important. So all the books were the books. So I was studying. This is the point I wanted to get, but this is more a fun, informal Sunday class. So I was in this class, and Buri Jampu was teaching the Bhagavad Gita systematically, breaking it up into different sections and everything in context. And I learned the whole Bhagavad Gita that way. I gave one course, 18 days, 1 hour, summary of the whole Bhagavad Gita. Knew every verse, how they follow. It was like this. So remember when we were studying, you got to that second chapter, contents of the Gita summarized, and there's this point and that point, and it's so confusing, and one verse after another. And finally, I raised my hand and I said, I don't understand this. And then Buri Jampu said, that's okay. Arjuna hasn't understood it yet either. Right? He hadn't understood it either. So it went to, he couldn't understand, right, how work could be spiritual. Especially the work he had as a warrior, and he had a fight, and who was against him was his own relatives, Bhishma, Drona, Bhamukha, pull it in front of and his relatives were there, and somehow it was his duty to fight, and he couldn't understand how you engaging me in this ghastly war if knowledge is better than works, if jnana is better than karma. How are you doing this to me? The whole point of one of the points of the Gita, that what makes something spiritual is not the activity necessarily, absolutely, but the consciousness in which it's formed. And therefore the whole Gita is put in the context of a war to prove that point. You want to prove a point, you put in its most extreme application. Then you really have to understand that point. Because why? The teacher speaks, the student responds and asks the question. According to the question, the teacher understands what's lacking in the student's frame of reference to understand this subject, and therefore he explains it, and then the student again asks the question, and this way the teacher can give the components of reference, can give the components of knowledge in the student's comprehension so that he can actually understand the point, right? Speaking the truth is not understanding. You have to do two things. You have to speak the truth and you have to understand the truth. And therefore, you have to make sure that students have the frame of reference to understand it. I'll just give you an example. If I came home in the initial Krishna consciousness to my mother, and my mother said to me, my son, and I spoke the philosophy, in a high way. I'm not your son and you're not my mother, because the Henos min yatade he komara yovanam jara Dhanurdhara prapti. As the embodied soul passes from boyhood to childhood to, the embodied soul moves from, bodies, and the self-realized soul is not bewildered by a change. I spoke the truth to my mother, right? But she didn't have the frame of reference to understand it. In the very beginning of the Krishna consciousness movement, in the New York Magazine, on the front cover was this handsome Hare Krishna devotee and this beautiful Hare Krishna lady dancing. And the article was, who are these Hare Krishnas and what are they doing in New York? And part of this guy gets, a Jewish guy from Long Island, he's getting married to a Siksha wife. His wife's not Jewish. And so the story, it's in there. He goes to his mother. He said, Mom, I'm getting married. And the mother says, is she Jewish? He says, Mom, she's spirit soul. And he says, but is she Jewish spirit soul? So speaking the truth is not enough. You have to have the truth known. This is the secret of communicating Krishna consciousness. You have to speak the language that the people that you're trying to teach understand. So that's so. Therefore, I wanted to get, the whole thing was to get to that. What Borjan said, Arjuna also didn't understand. There's dialectic. You ask questions. Questions are essential. Doubt is essential. Don't take advantage of this, Gail. Doubt is essential, because not doubting the philosophy, doubting your understanding of it. Because you have to, you come to a spiritual path. It's your choice. You should have faith in the authority of that spiritual path. But you may not understand everything that's said. Two things, right, Gail? Tatshradana munayo jnana vairagya yukta pashantyatmati chatmani bhaktashut. The seriously inquisitive sage, well equipped with knowledge and detachment, understands the truth by faithfully hearing from the Shastra that presents their tradition. And two things are required: faith and thoughtfulness. If you don't have faith, you can't understand, and you can't have faith, and you're approaching a teacher who has the truth. You can't understand anything beyond your own limited frame of reference. If you don't have faith in learning, in any field of knowledge, if you don't have faith in a teacher, you can't learn above your limited frame of reference. Because it's understood. If you're a student, you're limited in what you understand. And if you're not limited in what you understand, then why have a teacher? So it means you're limited. And especially in spiritual reality, there is truth that's beyond the way you see things now. And you'll never understand it without faith. Enough faith to think about it and consider it. You don't have faith, it doesn't conform to my limited conception of reality. I don't accept it. How will you learn? That's why faith is so important. And that's how you learn. You hear from someone who has knowledge, and then you try to understand it, you think about it, you apply it, then you learn it. You don't have faith, you won't go beyond. You're limited. And if you're not thoughtful, on the basis of your faith, you'll be accepting things that are not true because you faithfully heard but misunderstood it. And then you'll hear something that belies your conscience. You'll hear something that belies your scientific understanding. You'll hear something that belies this, and you'll accept it. But it's wrong. Why is it wrong? Not because it wasn't the truth, but because the way you understood it was wrong. So doubting is one of the signs of intelligence. It means you want to understand things further. And the example given in the Shastra is very, very interesting. There's a verse that said, Lord Brahma heard the Vedas 3 times and came to and came from Krishna and came to the conclusion that the essence of the Vedas was bhakti, or devotion. Why 3 times? The first time he heard it faithfully. And what is the Vedas? It's like 90% karma kanda. Karma kanda means fruitive activities. People are materialistic. The spiritual teachings want to first socialize you, get you to follow to make sacrifice. Nayam lokas yagyasya kuta. Without sacrifice, there's no happiness in this life or the next. But we're not going to sacrifice unless there's a goal. So most of religion is what? If you do this, you'll get this reward. Right? You do this, you get this, and it socializes you. It gets you in temples, it gets you in churches, it makes you associate with saintly people. And if the reward's in the future, you start to think, I'm not the body. But most of it's like that. But he said, but Brahma was what? How can this selfish type of consciousness used in spirituality, how can that be the essence of the Vedas? So Krishna spoke the whole Vedas again. And then what did he hear? He heard the Upanishads, the Upanishadic parts, the analysis, the philosophical parts. And he heard that. And then what did he think? Well, how can that be the essence of the Vedas? Just negative thoughts. It's not this, neti, not this, analysis, etc. That's the no. He said, I don't. He didn't immediately accept. Yes, Krishna, you spoke the Vedas. I heard karma kanda. It's karma kanda. You spoke the Vedas. I heard Gyanik. It's Gyanik. It's Jnana. He didn't accept it. He didn't accept what he didn't understand. He raised doubts. Not that he questioned Krishna, not that he questioned the Vedas, he questioned his own understanding. And then Krishna explained it further and further. And then he understood, yes, Vaideshta sarver ham eva ved yo vedanta vid veda vid eva chaham. From all the Vedas, Krishna is to be known. It's bhakti, it's love. How can the essence of all reality be anything but love? Everyone here is trying to be happy, and happiness is love. If we don't find it here, if that's here, then why shouldn't it be true? Why shouldn't it be existing in the ultimate reality? But the point was, he was thoughtful. He was faithful and thoughtful. Both things need to be done to understand the truth. And the inquisitive and the questions. So that was my first part, which I didn't get to what I was going to speak about initially. But I gave an introduction, but the introduction was relevant because what I wanted to explain is the different classes I'm giving. And it's according to different people's frame of reference. For example, this will be the first example. I just came from Colombia. People are very pious in South America. Very pious. It says about Mexico, there's no atheists in foxholes and Mexico. You know what foxholes are? In World War II, they would fight these horrible wars, and they'd have these trenches dug out. You'd be in the trenches, and then you'd have to get up and charge the other trench, and you're in there, and the bombs could come in. They said there's no atheists in foxholes. That's a famous idiom. There's no atheists in foxholes, and they say in Mexico and Colombia. People are so pious. India has lost a bit in this regard. They're in, God and family. God and family. They're so into God and family. So I have one, really such a great opportunity. I don't know, I got this. If you go to these South American countries, I never see the Bhavati. Somehow where I'm preaching, it's like 1/4 of the city. It's nicer than New York practically. And this yoga studio, the lady was into Prabhupada, and I had such a good opportunity. You saw the pictures they took there? The photo shoot? What would be a photo shoot? What's going on? I got it. Wednesday is a photo shoot. Huh? Photo shoot for what? Do you do a photo shoot for me, Sri Rupa? No photo shoot. Yeah, they're like, photo shoot. Okay. And then, so I'm preaching, and 60 people sign up. Right? So what am I going to speak? Right? Ete chamsa kala pumsa Krishna's tu Bhagavan Swayam. Krishna's the original personality of Godhead, accepted. No, I didn't start that way. I started what in our philosophy is within their frame of reference to understand. And the way people develop faith, if you want to, this is a class in preaching. You want people to develop faith, you speak through their frame of reference to increase their understanding. But you got to speak through their language. So I gave 2 seminars there. I'm not going to tell it. One was on forgiveness, but in a very spiritual way. The relationship of forgiveness to yoga. I'm not going to give the class now, but that's the relationship of forgiveness to yoga. And I explain that what yoga is, the purpose of yoga is to bring the mind to sattva. Sattva. Twa means ness, sattva means truthness. the reality of something. So what's the reality of the mind? The mind is a lens or a mirror. And when the mirror is clean or not distorted, it's in sattva. A mirror which is clean and not distorted is in sattva. That's what and the result is you can see properly. And then I make the point, all problems are perceptual, how you see them, and not actual, how they are. And you can do that. You give death. Death is the illusion of non-existence. Right? Our biggest problem doesn't exist. It's all perceptual. So this way, they can relate to it. Right? So it's distorted. So how do you, yoga means meditation. You focus on one thing. The other thoughts become quelled and the mind morphs into a higher level of perception and contentment. This is relevant for people. So yoga is about controlling the mind. And therefore, the first and most important principle of yoga is ahimsa or non-violence. That's there in the Yoga Sutras. Yam, niyam. Yam, how you control the mind in relationship to others, 5 principles. Then niyam, how you control the mind in relationship to others, 5 principles. Then asana, the body should be sukha and sthira, should be healthy and happy. And then pranayam, controlling the breath in relationship to the mind. Then pratyahara, then withdrawing the mind. Then begins dharana, dhyana, samadhi, ashtanga yoga. But the first principle is ahimsa, because if you can't control your mind in relationship to others, to the extent that you can't refrain from doing harm, you haven't reached the first step of yoga. And therefore, it's described that ahimsa is like an elephant's footprint. An elephant's footprint fits all the other footprints in. Everything, that's the beginning, ahimsa, nonviolence. And it means nonviolence with the body, the mind, and the words. So hate is against yoga. And what's the hardest, the most difficult hate to give up? What? Yeah. Justified hate, right? Justified hate. But it's still hate. And it still clouds the mind. Resentment clouds the mind. You got to give it up. And then I have a seminar of why. Why? So I'm not giving the seminar now, but I'm just showing you how you connect to people. And then what happens is they accept you as an authority. They accept you as an authority in knowledge. And then it comes to the point where you can explain things about bhakti and Krishna that normally they wouldn't have accepted, but now they're willing to hear it in a way that they can consider it. And then I give my seminar, Can God Be Blue? A Study of Krishna, where I discuss first the reasonability of the existence of God, the reasonability that God is a person, and the reasonability that that person is Krishna. But you have to build up the frame of reference. And then the next seminar I gave was, I forgot what I called it, but it was on gratitude as a fundamental spiritual principle of the soul. Gratitude. To appreciate what others have done for you. and the resultant kindness and mercy you feel in your heart. It's a basic principle of bhakti, actually. One of the principles of bhakti mentioned by Rupa Goswami is seeing the world in this way. It says expecting the mercy. The principle is that the world is teaching us and that everything that comes to us is for us. It's a principle. And without that principle, it's very hard to advance. Right? And if you have that principle in your consciousness, then Lord Brahma says, Tate nukampam susamikshama bhujan, that one who, as the karma comes, understanding that everything is coming to us, is for us, and trying to elevate our consciousness. And as one understands that and bows his head down in gratitude, it describes that one inherits the kingdom of God. One inherits the kingdom of God. What do you have to do to inherit something? Nothing. You inherit it, right? You just got to be born. So we're relationship to God. We inherit just by that consciousness of gratitude. And when I was studying this, it's very interesting. So I thought I was giving this seminar. And because I wanted to establish myself in this yoga studio, so I wanted to make sure I got it right. And there was one lady preaching to. She became a devotee, but a lot of times there's obstacles that we create. Somehow but I still kept contact with her. And she studied gratitude. She actually joined this gratitude community. And I watched her when she had cancer. And so she gave me these articles to read. And there was this incredible analogy that was given. It was so amazing. It described how pearls are made. There's an oyster with a mantle and a shell, and an irritant comes in, either a parasite or some sand, and the reaction is the oyster. Not all oysters have pearls. That's why they farm oysters. They get a lot. You got to find. There's one oyster's worth There's one pearl worth $30 million. It's called the Gilgo pearl. I looked it up. It's like this big. What a pain in the something that must have been that came in there. But the carbonite, and it's the calcium and the carbonite, it creates the pearl. So the analogy was good. If the pearl is precious, the wound that created it is precious. So that's us. If the realizations we get are precious, the difficulties we got that creates them are also precious. So very interesting in gratitude and all the how it develops character. I discuss yoga and gratitude because when you have gratitude, when you live that life of appreciation and understand that God's giving you realizations to elevate your consciousness, when you live your life like that, you stop comparing yourself to people who have more than you, because you're valuing the feelings of kindness and mercy in your heart. So you stop comparing yourself, which is the source of hate. Right? That's the source of hate. The people, they're better, they're this, they're that. You feel self-satisfied, even if you don't have as much money, even if you feel that way in your heart. It tempers that type of feeling. And when you have that feeling of gratitude, then you can start appreciating others, which is the principle of learning. Principle of learning is when you appreciate someone, you get their qualities. So this was my thing, was teaching, frame of reference. Actually, I went there when I came back. I didn't know what was going to happen when I went there. I just knew this lady and her new husband. They'd come to Bogota. I hadn't been to Bogota before. I used to go to Cali and other cities. It was great. So I went there in April. Then I came back in June. Now I'm going back the beginning of September, right before my Vyas Puja in Bogota. They line up those programs. They got that photo shoot. And then I did one thing that I don't like fun. I don't like to leave my room. I like my room. I like the country walks. Why? What? Boring. You know, I don't like, oh, let's go do this. No, I don't. But okay, they wanted to take me to this very holy, sacred place. Because like Bogota, it's 2,000 it's 2,000 feet, and it goes, you know, mountains up there. So they go in place. You could either take a little train or one of those things that goes up. It takes 3 minutes to go up, but walking. Then you got to walk up steps. And there was some, you know, like a church up there, like many churches. But it's so nice seeing people that are pious in their hearts. Boy, I see the I saw this old lady, and her husband, her son and daughter-in-law are just, you know, grabbing up the hill. How did she get up here? I saw her down there. And the people praying to God. And there was many different like shrines and things. So I went in the back. I saw these little boxes. It was the confessional one part. So I was sitting there and people were doing confession to me. I told you I got the wrong guy. You know, confession, the Catholic thing, they go and they say what their sins are. So people are revealing their mind. Wait a second, I'm not the guy. I'm just like a visitor. I'm a visitor here too. We'll do a little confessional there. It's a very nice, pious people. So that's classes. And then I was going to go and I write one article every week. Every week I write one article. And I wrote an article this week. And that's also difficult because there's many people, new people, old people. A lot of ISKCON gurus are there too. So I have to write for everyone. But sometimes it's a little more inner house, sometimes gratitude. So I'm studying every day with Dhanurdhara Swami, great saint. And we're studying different Shastra together. It's very enlivening because so much discussion and asking of things. And he shared with me this one thing, something called, a principle called Virodha Panchikat Shakti, the potency that resolves all contradictions. And I was very happy because this is more philosophical audience. The potency that resolves all contradictions. That God has the potency that resolves all contradictions. And and it was beautiful what Bhaktivinoda Thakur wrote. You'll read it tomorrow, Gail. I read it in class today. It resolves all kinds. And to me, it really made sense. And I thought of it this way myself, that if there's a God, there can be nothing above God. Time is not above God. We can't, it's inconceivable to us that God is not subject to time. If he's subject to time, he's not God because there's something that's greater than him. But that's completely inconceivable to us. And our logic is based on how the laws of nature work in this world of cause and effect. So it's reasonable that God is beyond logic. It's reasonable, but we can't conceive it. And therefore, you'll see in the scriptures when it discusses God and it discusses the spiritual realm, that there's all kinds of contradictions that Gail's been trying to work out for her whole life. Right? I'm going to throw this at you all the time, Gail, this Varoda Pankaj Shakti, beyond the potency resolves all. And I just said, Krishna never leaves Vrindavan, and he left. Krishna left Vrindavan, and he never leaves Vrindavan at the same time. Impersonal and personal. God is both personal and impersonal at the same time. So I wrote an article about that. And then there's a great Vaishnav scholar in our movement. His name is Bhakti Vigyan Goswami, disciple of Radhanath Swami. There's nothing he does not know. It's just his potency of learning. I'm very good friends with him. In Vrindavan, he invites me for prasad every day. Every day I go. Except when I want some pizza. Except when I want something good. So he's very learned. He's given this Bhagavatam. There's 5 2-hour lectures on just the introduction to the Bhagavatam. Very interesting, very detailed. We haven't even gotten to the Bhagavatam yet. And so he's explaining, and this is just, I'm going to end with this. It's just one thing that just really is so important in spiritual life. And and it came up in all the different classes I teach. I have different people, and I teach class now Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Friday, Sunday. Different classes, different people. But there's one point, and whenever I have time, he said that every sacred text has these 4 categories that must be in a sacred text. Vishaya means the subject. Then what we know is Sambandha, Abhideya, and Priyojana. Sambandha means basically your concept of reality. Abhideya means the means to realize that. And Priyojana means the result of doing so. But Sambandha, it was explained by Jiva Goswami in a little bit different way. That the way we understand what reality is before we deeply realize it, just understanding what it is, and he said, Sambandha, Vachika, Vacha. Vacha means an object. Vachika means the expression of the object. So it says Sambandha, the way that the Shastras revealed is that the object of reality is non different than the words that express it in Shastra. Vacha, the object, Vacha, the expression. So basically what this means is that the main way that we understand the Shastra, and this is encouraging, is not by the intellect. The intellect is a very important way, but it's the faith of hearing. That sound vibration is revelatory in itself. And this was, in my other classes, this was so deep because there's one small group of people from Vrindavan that I study with, and we're doing the 14th chapter of the Chaitanya Charitamrita, which is Lord Chaitanya's transformations in ecstasy. And it really begins by saying that even those who are advanced in knowledge cannot understand this. Those who are advanced in knowledge cannot understand this. Then it says, but if you hear this faithfully, you can understand it and get prema bhakti. But then my realization, this was it, because I'm studying with Dhanurdhara Swami 1 hour, and I have these classes and we're discussing it. I can see that just by hearing that sound vibration, applying your intelligence, just by hearing that sound vibration, there's some realizations and understanding that comes. And when I realized this, I said, okay, let me read the Bhagavatam again. Just read the Sanskrit verses. Then I can look at in a half second at the English. Just read those verses. Hear that vibration. And I could see that hearing that vibration itself, some realizations comes. Of course, the Bhagavatam is not different than its message. You have to understand what that message is. Otherwise, you're not. But it's so powerful. So that was that Sambandha. That was that's a theme of mine now, because I see that I'm more than ever before now. I'm engaging in Shastra and studying. And the other point is, when you read and study with others, Krishna becomes pleased and blesses you with understanding. Shrinvata swakata Krishna punya shravana kirtana hidyantasto yabhadrani vidanoti sarit satam. Vidanoti. When you hear Krishna Katha, Shrinvata swakata punya shravana kirtana, this hearing and chanting is pious. Shrindata swakata Krishna punya hidyantasto yabhadrani, that which was inauspicious in the heart. Vidanoti, it's clean. Surit satam, why? Surit means close in heart. It's a type of friend who's a well-wisher. Surit satam, he's the well-wisher of the devotee. So I was also saying this, Krishna has a certain pleasure when you read and you discuss and you hear, a certain pleasure that goes. So there's different. The understanding is the intellect. I make these things up, but they make sense. Is the intellect the vibration of the words and the mercy of Krishna? The intellect. There it is. That could be my next Monday morning greetings. I didn't have one. Roger, write those down. The intellect, the sound vibration, and the mercy of Krishna. Okay, look at that. Exactly 1 hour. I never speak for more than 1 hour. I don't believe in speaking more than 1 hour. That's the longest I'll speak. Any questions? Any reflections? Any points that you appreciated in the class? Any questions?
Can I?
Well, wait, let's give others a chance.
Oh, he gave me the mic. So.
Anybody have any reflections? Anything in the class that struck you? Yeah, okay.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, all glories to Srila Prabhupada.
Hi.
One of course, the frame of reference was a big part of the theme. I think that was very enlightening.
Yeah.
Also, your perspective and the other person's perspective. So you don't really understand it fully. And I'm really saying it in layman language. But if you don't understand the other perspective, you really don't understand the subject. That was my takeaway.
Yeah.
And the third big one for me was what's coming to you is it's meant for you.
It's for you, yes.
It's for you.
Wow. Thank you. That's
My
good.
thought around that was, of course, you need faith.
Yeah.
And then you need thoughtfulness.
Yeah.
But then is being submissive the way we want to go? It's a bit of a question and it's a bit of thinking in there.
Submissive.
Yes. Like it's karma. It's coming for you.
I'm not sure I understood you, but it's submissive to the truth, not just any nonsense.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
I mean, there could be an authority that's not an authority. That's,
right.
But the faithfulness comes when you find what you consider as an authority, not just someone that's above you, but an authority in terms of what they know. And
Yes.
like you go to a doctor, if he's a medical authority, then you're submissive.
Yes.
It's not just this. There's something also. There's social structures that work. Otherwise, if there's nobody in charge that makes decisions,
yep.
etc., nothing moves forward. But that doesn't mean the acceptance.
That's helpful because my original nature is questioning.
Yeah.
But then I also want to. That makes a lot of sense.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank
Great.
You,
Thank you.
Thank you.
Gail, do you have any questions?
Couple. You mentioned a principle of learning.
A
right?
what?
Principle of learning.
Yeah.
And you connected it to, when you appreciate something and somebody that comes to you. But when you mentioned principle of learning, what were you thinking about?
What do you mean? I don't understand.
You remember when you talked about principle of learning?
Just recently? Just now? What I gave her?
No. I mean, in the middle of your talk.
Okay.
Anyway, I was wondering what that principle of learning was.
Well,
and then because immediately after you said,
I wrote something about the principle of perception is hearing, attentiveness, attentiveness, knowledge, attitude, and the mercy of God. That's a principle of perception.
Yeah.
Not just the senses.
Right.
You have to be attentive, and not just being attentive in the senses. You have to know what it is. You have to have knowledge of it. Not just that, you have the proper attitude also. And even that's not enough. You have to have the mercy of God.
Mm-hmm. You did mention principle of learning. That's why I'm asking. You said
I don't remember, so I'm giving what I think could be.
Okay, so can I ask a different question?
Yeah, throw that principle of learning out.
So it's the Lord Brahma. He heard it. The Vedas.
It's what?
Lord Brahma.
Oh, that Lord Brahma.
He heard it. He heard the Vedas 3 different times, came away with 3 different understandings. But when the first time when he thought that the Vedas was karma.
Right.
Because, we do something, we get a reward.
Right. And people are materialistic, so that's how religion is going to be presented, to encourage people to perform sacrifice, to go to church, to get good association, to see that things are beyond a lot. The rewards are offered in the future, so maybe we're not the body. That's the basic principle of religion, to socialize people. And get
I'm wondering, he was hearing the Vedas because he kind of didn't know anything, right?
Right.
So if he kind of didn't know anything, how did he know that karma kanda couldn't have been it and neti couldn't have been it either?
He's very intelligent. That's it.
Yeah, but I mean, what did he see that was so wrong about you do something, you get a reward? What did he see that was so wrong about that?
Because he had a sense of what the ultimate teaching should be. Shouldn't be just materialistic. Then he thought about it. No, it shouldn't be just materialistic. The ultimate teacher, it's spoken by the Vedas, spoken by God. It should be more than that. And then he came to it should be a little bit more than analytical, the Vedas. And then
I feel like the only way he could be suspicious about those things if he already knew the highest truth. Otherwise, I don't see what's so wrong about materialism.
well, what I'll tell you, Gail, just hear the shabda, hear the vibration, you'll understand.
Okay, I'll try.
Okay. Anybody else with a reflection? Okay. Yes. Shruva, this is great now because you can never hear the questions. We got to get good equipment, right? But we'll work on it to get the really top equipment. Yes.
Haribol Prabhuji, Maharaj, it's a great honor to listen to you and take your blessings. I have one question. Loud?
No.
This is just for the recording.
Okay, I thought this is the microphone.
Yeah.
There's some speaker somewhere.
Okay.
Okay, Maharaj, I have one question. I'm just struggling with that right now. If we have to give priority, look, we all know that not two things can be done at the same time. So if we have to give priority in the spiritual practice which we do, and the duties which was given to us in this material nature, in this material world, like family and all, the priority is given, like then how we adjust that priority, like which takes the priority over another.
I think, Prabhupada once listed it in a way. I forgot what that list was. It's, what is it? First is your health, then?
And then,
Well, let her answer. What?
then japa,
Then your sadhana.
then your service,
Yeah. Yeah.
And then the fourth one.
Yeah. Is what? Yeah, I think in terms of priority, everything takes intelligence. And spiritual life also needs guidance because it's tough. In other words, there's three things. There's three things. You have to surrender to God. You have to know how to surrender. You have to have the right principle to surrender. You have to surrender to God by Dharma, and you have to have guidance to see how to apply it in the proper way. So it's never easy, right? It's like taking a perfect shower. It's like hot or cold or hot or cold. It's not too hot, too cold. It takes some thoughtfulness, and that's what the Shastra is for. It's for Sambandha Gyan, also means balanced understanding. How much to put this, how much to put that. And then there should be guidance to make it in the right way. Like, I'll give you an example. I have a retreat every year in Puri, and factually speaking, the most learned Gaudiya Vaishnav scholar would come to my retreat. The most. His name was Dr. Fakir Mohan. I can tell you that he was giving class in Bhubaneswar. He's a Risan. He gave class on this bhajan by Bhaktivinoda Thakur. He came to the line, this temporary material world is full of suffering, take shelter in the holy name of Krishna. He spoke on it for 3 years. Then he came to Vrindavan. They asked him to speak on Manasiksha. So the first verse is Guru Go Rao Go Stali Shu Swajani Bhushane Gane. He got the word guru. He spoke 1 month. He never got to the other 12 verses. He's very, very learned. So I asked him to give class. He didn't want to give class. He would sit in my class. He'd sit in this class. He didn't. So one baby cried. And the mother, it's so funny. The mother took the child out of the room, right? And then he started saying, bring the baby, bring the baby, bring the baby. You know, I thought of that funny. But the mother, right, like I thought about this, is the mother, you know, it's not that a priority ultimately is like sitting Bhagavatam and her child is playing in the street. You know what I'm saying? Like, it could be, you know, so there's different, it's a fine balance of what it is. But, you know, our priorities sometimes we have to take into account our own understanding. One time, one of my disciples wasn't chanting at all, and I went to see her. I said, okay, at least chant 4 rounds. And she was very honest and practical. She said, yeah, hey, a half a sitcom. You know what I'm saying? So we don't have time, but check how much time we're on the internet and all these things and what our priorities. So first, you know, have the real priorities. Okay, I have my family, I have my job. Okay, these are priorities. I have my son, I have my priorities. Make sure other things are not above that. And then we make sure that other things are not above that. Okay, there's some recreation, there's some exercise, but we make sure that other things are not above. Then we ask that question. And then it may come that a person is working so hard. You know, Srila Bhakti Siddhanta, you know, he was a Naishtika brahmachari, and he initially said to his disciples, okay, everyone should chant. He said, especially the grihastas should chant 64 rounds, he said, because the people in the ashram are busy with seva. Right? And he said, if they can't finish, then they can come at night at the temple and chant. Okay. Then the disciples said, oh my God, they came, we can't do this, we're grihastas. You know. Then he said, okay, at least 4. Don't starve your beads. Right? And somebody didn't say anything. So I'm just saying, you set ideals and then it's practically applied. Some people in the modern age, you see, and that's why Prabhupada actually was trying to establish self-sufficient farm communities. He didn't believe that people could be so Krishna conscious in the world. The Ugra karma and the responsibilities and how it is, we never did that. So it's known it's going to be tough. But at least sadhu sangha, take advantage of sadhu sangha as a priority. You know, don't starve the beads. You know, but first, take out the things that are just an absolute waste of time. And then set your priority. You practice. You can't neglect. You have to work. And then sometimes we have to look at our life and say, what is this life? Maybe I need to change the life. The life is not conducive. One time I had this lady, I guess she's an aspiring disciple. She was a vice president of Morgan and Stanley. And then she came to me, you know, and actually she was living, her house was in Pennsylvania, 2 hours away. She'd have to go early in the morning on the bus into work and then back on work and have 3, 5. And she told me, you know, it's so difficult, it's impossible. I gave her a TED talk on how to change your career. And it was so scientific. She did this, saw what was her priorities, what was this, and she changed her career. She changed her career. Somehow it doesn't work. So it's a balance. I can't say any more than that. Okay, now you'll do a little kirtan. Is that it? And then we'll have prasadam. Okay? Yeah, I want you just drum, traditional drum.
Krishna, 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 Hare Hare,
Hey!
Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna,
Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna,
Krishna
Krishna, Hare Hare,
Hare Rama,
Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada.
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 Nitai Gaura Hari Bo, Hari Bo, Hari Bo, Nitai Gaura Hari Bo.
Nitai Gaura Hari Bo, Hari Bo, Hari Bo, Nitai Gaura Hari Bo.
Nitai Gaura Hari Bo, Hari Bo, Hari Bo, Nitai Gaura Hari Bo.
Nitai Gaura Hari Bo, Hari Bo, Hari Bo, Nitai Gaura Hari Bo.
Nitai Gopinande Hari Bo. Prabhupada ki jai.